Hey guys, we are back with the first Subjectively Speaking in months. It's been a long time since we've been able to crank out one of these critical analysis videos for everyone, but they're always a lot of fun to think up and produce, so I'm really excited to be starting it again. For those of you new to the series, Subjectively Speaking is a collection of video discussions based around character design in popular culture, such as video games, TV shows, and movies. These videos are based off of my expertise as a professional illustrator and my personal experience with said media. But of course, as the name would imply, these videos are all rooted in opinion, and every person has their own. So please feel free to contribute your thoughts on the topic down in the comments, and start a conversation. Today's topic is really exciting, and I can't wait to dive in. As most of you watching probably know, I'm a huge fan of the subgenre of video games that I like to call the collectible monster genre. Basically, any franchise that orients itself around the collection, trading, and battling of imaginary creatures. Some of the biggest names include Digimon, Bakugan, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and of course, Pokemon. There are many other lesser-known series out there too, as some of you may remember from my video discussing the success, or lack thereof, of Spectrobes. When it really comes down to it, no franchise in the collectible monster genre has ever been able to fully replicate the success of Pokemon. Between the video games, the TV shows, the movies, the trading cards, the merch, the toys, they've been dominating the space for decades. Sure, I'm willing to bet that some people have more emotional attachments to other franchises, but every developer who's tried to make a game in the CM genre for the past 15 years knows that they can and will be compared to Pokemon. It's indisputably the king of collectible monsters. Of course, that doesn't stop game devs and other companies from trying. Even in the past few years, there are new players in the CM genre that have found mild success. Yokai Watch managed to keep a strong hold on the market for a good 3 or 4 years, but for whatever reason, none of these names, no matter how popular they may be even today, have been a real threat to Pokemon's regime. But all of that may be about to change. Pokemon's most recent core series game, Sword and Shield, has been met with very transparent disdain from the majority of its fanbase. People were upset, among other things, primarily about a lack of a complete Pokédex, featuring what would now amount to 890 unique collectible monsters. Rumors about cut corners, sloppy coding, and rushed deadlines also put a bad taste in the mouths of many people who at first were very excited about the next generation of Pokemon, and many devoted fans claimed that they would boycott the game unless things changed. It was in the wake of this chaos that a new, if not somewhat small, collectible monster game emerged. An addition to the genre that boasted novel, engaging designs, unique art style, and a new platform in which to enjoy the sport of monster battling. Enter Temtem. Temtem is a massively multiplayer creature collection adventure that, in the words of the developers, was directly inspired by Pokemon. Hey, at least they're not pretending to be anything that they're not. The connection between the two franchises is pretty obvious, but there are a few key distinctions that give the game a fighting chance to compete with such a massively successful series. Let's start with the most important difference. Temtem is an MMO. How long have Pokemon fans dreamed of a game where they could run around with their favorite Pokemon and their best friend in real time, hundreds of miles away from one another? In fact, there are quite a few unofficial Pokemon MMO hacks that independent coders and developers have created to help fans of the series scratch that itch. Now, in fairness, Pokemon Sword and Shield does have a fairly intricate online co-op system that allows players to interact in several ways over Wi-Fi at great distances. But the system feels unpolished, clunky, and tends to be buggy, and any real-time interactions are only achieved in battles, trades, or during camping. It's not quite what we've been looking for. Temtem, on the other hand, functions like a true MMO, with an open world where players can interact with one another like they would in World of Warcraft, or, forgive the obscurity of this reference, but in a game like Free Realms. This adds a whole other level of depth to a game. The modern gaming market is all about the longevity of a single game. In other words, how long a single player can enjoy one copy of one game. Online shooters, strategy, and role-playing games exemplify the success of this design model, as games as old as League of Legends or Team Fortress 2 continue to have active fan bases to this day. A model like this would ensure a long future for a game like Temtem, as they could avoid the costs and risks involved with producing an entirely new game every few years, and could focus instead on adding new content to their existing MMO world. Now, let's talk differences in combat mechanics. In my Spectrobes video, I discussed why the core fighting mechanics in that series was one of the key reasons the franchise died out so quickly. There just wasn't enough strategy involved to keep an older audience interested. Temtem did what I think most CM games should do in order to compete with Pokemon: rip off their battle mechanics. Turn-based battles with a set number of monsters, where type advantage, abilities, special move interactions, and the strategizing of the player are the key factors at work. Now, it's not a direct ripoff. Temtem tweaked Pokemon's model a little bit. For one, every battle is a 2v2. That means that one player controls 2 Temtem on their side, and the other player controls 2 on theirs. Or, 2 players control 1 Temtem on their side each, like a tag team battle or a multi-battle in Pokemon. This limits the number of strategies available to a trainer, or tamer, in the world of Temtem, but it's still involved enough to catch the interest of players whose primary enjoyment of a game like this comes from strategizing. Temtem boasts a very well-balanced and engaging battle system, and while only time will tell whether they have the proof to back up their claim, I believe that their confidence in this element of their game is a key indicator of their level of understanding of what makes a game like this successful. Now, there are a few other minor game mechanic differences between Temtem and Pokemon, but you guys know that this is subjectively, and we're not here to talk about programming and game development. We're here to talk about character design. And like I said in my Spectrobes video, character design is one of the primary reasons Pokemon is as successful as it is today. Think about it. Where would they be without Pikachu? Without Charizard? Think about how upset all the fans were when they found out their favorite designs wouldn't be in the new game. I mean, I wouldn't know. My favorite Pokemon is Magikarp. But in all seriousness, strong, well thought out character design is key in any successful game. The question is, does Temtem have what it takes to compete? Temtem will be introducing dozens of new monster designs for players to meet, tame, and battle with. Now, I was a little disappointed when I heard dozens at first, but let's be honest, designing these things is hard, and this is a small indie Kickstarter game. I happen to be working for 2 different independent game developers right now doing exactly this, creating collectible monsters to fill their games, and as fun as it is, it can be very time consuming. Besides, a full list of every single available Temtem has not yet officially been released, so it's too early to say that they won't deliver on quantity. Now, from what we can see at this point, the designs of the Temtem do stand out next to Pokemon. The artists responsible for designing and rendering these creatures seem to understand what makes a game like Pokemon unique and successful, and how to repurpose those traits in a way that looks different while still exemplifying that success. James Turner, one of the artists who designs for Pokemon and the art director on Sword and Shield, once said that the key to any good Pokemon design is that it must look like it could be your friend. It's what unifies all of the designs in the franchise, and I think it's important for any game wanting to replicate Pokemon's success to capture that emotion as well. Temtem does this without using the same style as Pokemon's illustrator Ken Sugimari, whose iconic illustration style is easy to identify with Pokemon. And while it is possible to replicate that style, doing so would only invite further comparison between a new idea and Pokemon, which would only end in what they've created being described as a Pokemon knockoff. Temtem has shaken that unattractive title by separating their art style completely from that of Pokemon, while still capturing the principle of design that James Turner had established. I'd be friends with this guy. Or this guy too. In fact, I really like a lot of these designs. I think they do a good job meeting in the middle between an abstract concept, such as an emotion or an element, and a design based in the real world, whether that be an animal, an inanimate object, or a cultural symbol or icon. Now, I don't like all of them, but that goes for Pokemon as well. Some of them are more to my taste than others, but I think that's important. There's something for everyone to enjoy, just like in Pokemon. You've got your humanoid Temtems, you got your Dragon Boys, your Reds, your Pinks, your Tentacles, and your Petals. I do have a problem with this guy though, because I created something back in middle school that looked almost exactly like this. One thing I would say these designs are lacking are a clear individual personality for each stage of an evolutionary line. Look at a 3-stage Pokemon line like Mudkips. You can tell that these 3 creatures are related, but each one has a unique feature and personality that aren't directly replicated in their other forms. A lot of these evolutionary lines fall victim to something that I call add-on disease, where instead of creating 3 creatures that are related, but stand alone look somewhat unique to one another, each stage merely adds on some sort of physical feature. Whether it's a mushroom that gets bigger or a horn that gets extra curls, there's nothing objectively wrong with it, but I think it limits how people can enjoy a game like this. I mean, think of how many people out there like Jigglypuff more than Wigglytuff. Or how surprised you felt when you evolved Trapinch into Flygon for the first time. If you knew nothing about Pokemon, would you be able to tell me that Remoraid evolves into Octillery? I for one will miss that level of creativity in Temtem's design, but with time, perhaps we will see new Temtems that utilize those design principles. Now, aside from the character design with the actual Temtems, I do have another problem with the art direction of this game. The human designs are boring. And I don't mean the player characters. Having fully customizable player model is, in my opinion, one of the most important features of any MMO. I'm talking about the story-related NPCs, the villains, the protagonists, and so on. There's just nothing about their looks, outfits, or personalities that excites me, and I think that's another key part of a successful series like Pokemon that they're missing from their games. I won't harp too much on that though, because I know that the human designs are not what attracts people to a game like this, but I do think that iconic human characters are necessary to replicate the feel of a game like Pokemon, and only time will tell if that detracts from the success of the game. On that note, I wish I could give you a more concrete conclusion to this video, but I really think I summed it up best in the last line. Only time will tell if Temtem has what it takes to dethrone Pokemon from its seat atop the collectible monster genre. The timing of the release of this game is impeccable, and maybe ex-fans of the Pokemon franchise who were hurt enough by the alleged betrayal of Game Freak in their newest game will consider a switch to this shiny new alternative. I, for one, am more than intrigued and will definitely purchase this game for myself. But from where I'm sitting now, it's far too early to take a stance on whether or not Temtem has what it takes to be the new Pokemon, but my gut instinct is telling me that it's not going to replace it, not for a long time at least. Despite the controversy surrounding Sword and Shield, the games were still incredibly successful, breaking records as the best-selling Switch game since the console's release. Pokemon is still standing strong, but that should never discourage new creators from taking the leap and trying to stake their claim in the CM genre. I mean, how many of us created our own versions of Pokemon as children, hoping to spark that same joy that we felt in the hearts and minds of others? In some way, Pokemon is both the motivation and the opposition. But no matter which game tops the Christmas sales or clears out GameStop shelves, it's that initial love for the genre that keeps us curious, makes us furious, and inspires us to create the next worldwide phenomenon. Thank you guys all for watching this video. I want to give a special thank you to our patrons, and if you'd like to help support the channel and everything that we do here, please consider joining. The link is down in the description. Don't forget to like and share this video with a friend if you enjoyed it, and be sure to check out our other videos discussing character design, Pokemon, video games, and a few topics that really no one cares about. Okay guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.